Hi there, thanks for stopping by. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to work a square piece of Teneriffe lace using one of our Teneriffe lace looms. I'll pop all of the information into the description box below. So let's get started. In order to save a little bit of time, I have already warped up the loom according to the instructions. This is one of the patterns that comes with the square loom. And I have worked at the center the double darning. So just to bring in the camera a little bit. So that you can see what I'm doing. Now the next part of the instruction for the pattern is to work a darned bar over the middle 6 ends for about 10 millimeters. And so if you were to look at the drawing that is in the pattern, you will see that the middle being at a cross section. And so a darned bar is simply weaving back and forth in and out. Now because it's over 6 ends, we'll do 3 in one direction, and then 3 in the other. So we'll split that central section, and a darned bar is basically back and forth, over and under. I've worked the darned bar, and now I need to actually knot the threads at the top here to finish it off, and I need to make the knot twice. So I'm going to, because I want to work in this direction, and the reason that you need to work the knot twice is because the first one won't be like a complete knot because of the way in which the thread sits. So we'll work the first one, and this is just the standard Teneriffe lace knot, and then work the second one. And then we need to come back down to the middle so that I can carry on and work the darned bar off to the side. Now when you come down to the middle, you can just come straight down. However, depending on what your final use for your lace is, you may find that it is helpful to just go through some of those stitches just to lock it a little bit better before you get down to the center, because you don't want too many long floats at the back of your work. And then we're back to the center, and I can work the next darned bar over the center 6 just here, and so on until I have 4. Remember that what you're seeing at the moment is the back of the work. So I've now completed all 4 of the darned bars. And I have taken the thread back to the center and fastened off as the pattern instructions state. Now, if you have enough thread on your needle, you don't really have to go to the center and fasten off and add a new length of thread. However, by this point, you're probably running a little low, so this is a good opportunity to add the new length of thread as the instructions state. So, in order to add the thread, we're going to work a Teneriffe lace knot just as normal. The instructions want us to use 8 ends, so the 6 of the darned bar and 1 either side knotted together. And in order to fix this new length on, we're going to really need to do this twice. So I'm just going to group together what's needed. I would normally hold this up, but I want to try to let you see what I'm doing as easy as possible. And so as you can see, it needs a little bit more tightening. So at this point, I would do a second knot. And then I would also weave through. Okay, so there's the second knot. Now what you can do is this tail, work a little knot here, and this will make sure that everything is fastened into place well. And then this tail end, use a finer needle and you can weave that underneath some of these threads from the darned bar, just so that the tail end isn't right up there at your knot, and it will be less noticeable then. You could weave it through a couple of times. If you leave a longer length, you could take it all the way to the center if you wish. And then we're going to carry on. So the pattern is to knot 2 ends 8 times, so we'll go along, and it's in a circle. So we'll go along until we reach the next one and we'll split again. So knotting 2 ends, like so. And I shall carry on doing that and work all of the way around. And for those of you who are eagle-eyed, you'll see that that little tail end that I snipped it too short, and it's just popped straight out with the tension. So, oh well. At least it has an extra knot and it will hold. There is our circle, our row of knots worked. And always remember to start your row with another knot above your beginning knot, if that makes sense. So now what we have to do is, according to the instruction, we need to thicken to the bar, and then we're going to work a festoon at the top. Okay, so basically thickening means to whip. So if you've ever done a whipped stitch in embroidery, you're just basically wrapping your thread around that row that was created by working all of these knots. And of course, this will emphasize this row because you've thickened the line. Now, a festoon is basically going in an arc. So we're weaving over and under, and you can go over and under pairs or singly, whatever suits you best. You'll get a finer line if you go singly. Then you come down to the cross bar, and then you go back up and weave in the opposite direction. So you're going over and under opposite threads. And again, back down to the bar. So hook over the bar and weave back. And then I'm going to carry on. Thickening this line until I get to the next bar, and so on, so that I will add a little festoon above every single one of these. And there's the design with the festoons, and now we're ready to do the edge. Now the actual pattern calls for a Pico Edge, so that's what I will work, but I do want to remind you that a Pico Edge can slip, and so should always be attached to another piece of lace or onto something else, not really used on its own or as an edging without further work. I'll show you why as we get to it. Now you could fasten off and start a new thread, or you could just do a little bit of an extra festoon on half just to get you up to the top. So what I mean by that is I'll just go back until I get to the center top of this festoon, and then I can work the Pico Edge on this pair. So for a Pico Edge, what you're actually doing is you're knotting the two threads that are at one holding stitch, or if you're using pins, at one pin. Okay, so it is just as with all of the rest, a Teneriffe lace knot, and then we move to the next two. And because this is a square loom, you want to work these so that they're about the same distance away from the holding loop, and so therefore into a square shape. Now I'll show you here before I take it off, because your knot is on this little loop, that loop can, when this is removed, can be pulled upward, and that's why it's best to stitch down anything with a Pico edge through those picots, or joining them through those picots, so that it doesn't actually go anywhere. So I'll carry on and work all of the way around. And there's the Pico Edge, which of course I realize you can't see very well at the moment because it's still on the loom. Now the one other way that you can shore up the Pico Edge, if you want to leave it as such, is to work a whipped thickening stitch. If you do this, what you need to do is you'll go through the gap, but then what you should do is you need to take that through, this might be a bit difficult to see, but through the actual loop of the picot. Okay, so what that's going to do is, whilst it will thicken the thread, you may be able to see it a bit better now that it's coming through the loop, is it will stop this horizontal thread from slipping up and over, because it will be sort of woven in place and stopping in between that loop. So I'm just going to do that all of the way around, just to give it a little bit of an extra strength on the edge, and then I'll come back to you. And so I've gone ahead and thickened all of the way around and taken the thread through the loop of the picot, which will help to strengthen it. Now, before I do the blocking, I'm going to take the initial thread, the starting thread, and bring it up to the back of the piece, because obviously I don't want that hanging out. And then I'll just work a little knot here, just to hold that starting thread in place. And now I'm going to block the piece before I remove the holding stitches. So if I've got anything that just needs a little bit of a tweak, I can go ahead and tweak it. Obviously, if your knots are really tight, as they should be, you're not going to be able to do an awful lot of tweaking, but you can often just move them a little bit. I'm going to be using some lace starch. You can use, depending on what you want to use it for, you can use starch or you can use PVA glue. And I'm literally just going to paint some of this into the threads, making sure that I get some of the places where my knots are as well. And I'm going to try to avoid the holding stitches. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with the holding stitches actually adhered to the lace stitches. Now this will help to stiffen up the lace, which is obviously starching lace is quite traditional. Put a little bit too much on this end. But because we're keeping it stretched while we do it, it will also mean that this helps to hold its shape, which will make sewing lots of pieces together, if you want to make something large, much easier. It will also make, again, because it will hold its shape, will make inserting the lace easier. So all in all, it helps you to manage what would otherwise be quite a flimsy piece of lace, but also helps to make sure that those knots don't come loose, and keeps everything in place. So I will leave that to dry. You can force it along a little bit if you wish with a hair dryer, something like that. And then I'll come back and we'll cut the holding stitches for our big reveal. And so now the starch is dry and ready for the big reveal. So turn over, and at the back, just cut all of the holding stitches. Come to the front. And I'll just take the holding stitches out from the lace, and as you can see, because the lace has been starched, it's holding its shape really well. So this is the back of the piece. you can't see it very well, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a piece of darker cloth. And so this piece can be used by connecting it to other pieces to make a larger piece of lace. It can, of course, be put in as an insertion or added on the top as an applique. It's entirely up to you. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a little bit about working shapes with Teneriffe lace. And do please click like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what else you'd like to see on the channel, and I'll see if I can get it planned in. Thanks very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.